Wingman Joker, thank you for listening to this channel and please support the channel. Please subscribe. Chapter 10, Maverick. Donald didn't play any tricks as he solemnly guided Adrian through the tower as they headed toward the master's room. The moment his father sent him to fetch his brother, it became his responsibility to take care of him after all. So, after taking an elevator to reach the top floor, Donald gracefully stepped ahead of Adrian and began leading the way, making sure to greet all the hot secretaries who bowed to him while showing some cleavage. This guy was clearly setting himself up to be the next tower master. Well, Donald was 1 year older than Adrian, so being a fourth-ranked magician at his age was not bad at all, unless he was compared to his little brother, that is. Very smoothly, they finally reached a grand red gilded wooden door. Donald took a deep breath and then knocked 3 times without sparing Adrian a glance. "Come in," the reply briefly came from the other side. Donald took a deep breath, then opened the door and walked in without sparing Adrian, who followed behind him, a glance. "Father." Donald bowed. From his face, it was clear how much he both respected and feared his father. Quote. Adrian bowed slightly too. He couldn't call the name father, due to the family rules, and Donald was clearly rubbing it in his face. "You may raise," Adrian's father said, making both stand up and look at the legendary man who sat behind the grand desk. Maverick Red Oak was a tall, muscular man whose main features were his long red hair and a handsome face that was ruined by a tall, ugly sword scar that ran right across his left cheek, cutting his nose bridge and barely missing his right eye as it climbed its way up to his hairline. Although it affected his looks a bit, it made him look very domineering. Scars in this world were usually easily curable using magic, but not the one Maverick had. Although Adrian didn't know it in the past, now he could clearly feel the chaotic magical power embedded in it. Whoever gave his father this scar was some really nasty shit. It is a demonic curse. He must have fought a high-ranking demon. One of his soul fragments commented, making Adrian squint his eyes and wonder about the story behind it. "Adrian," Maverick said as he inspected his son and totally ignored Donald. "How have you been?" he asked with an ugly smile that was the result of his ruined cheek muscle. It was clear, Adrian was his favorite son, the offspring of the love of his life. And he was going to take care of him no matter what. "There has been a change, and something fishy," Adrian said solemnly. Quote. "What do you mean?" Maverick asked with an expectant look as Donald looked at Adrian with a frown. He was secretly trying to sense if he had any mana emissions from him. All magicians and magical warriors leak some mana unconsciously, and this was usually one of the ways to easily discern their level. Adrian leaked nothing. Quote. "We need to speak in private," Adrian said. "Donald, you may leave," Maverick raising one eyebrow said directly. But he wanted to hear how Adrian would make a fool out of himself. Quote. "Don't you have a mission to accompany Dr. Thomas here?" Yes, father," Donald finally said before shooting Adrian a passing glare and silently leaving with his tail between his legs. That's how Adrian saw it. "Speak," Maverick said as soon as the door was closed. The room had 3 isolation arrays, so he didn't fear anyone eavesdropping. Adrian didn't speak, he just flicked his finger, making a blue flame ball appear in his hand, slowly forming it into an intricate swirling spike that he shot at his father. Maverick, although a little taken aback, quickly stood up and grabbed it from midair. Without changing its shape, letting it swirl in his hand, he inspected it as if it were not made out of flames but some ordinary material. Adrian could easily tell that this was because of his father's 7th Fire Master circuit that allowed him free reign over flames. 2nd degree spell, burning spike, perfect flame. On top of that, Maverick appraised it as the spike slowly dissipated in his hand. "You can use magic again. 2nd degree, he asked as he looked at Adrian with a shocked yet pleased expression. This spell was one of the hardest 2nd degree spells in the family books. Even some advanced mages can't pull it out perfectly. His son was back. "Yup," Adrian said. "I also got all my memories of that day back," he explained. "What?" Maverick exclaimed. "Come, sit, we still have time until your assessment." He gestured for Adrian to sit on a couch to the side as he sat opposite him and activated an extra isolation spell by waving his hand and making a dome of fire surround both of them. "Tell me what happened back then," he added in an excited voice. Adrian nodded. "Well, if I remember correctly, back then I was working to achieve a big discovery before my assessment," he said, carefully choosing his words. "Using black magic?" Maverick frowned. Of course not." Adrian began to lie while carefully using martial arts to control his body's reaction. His father was an expert with heightened senses, he could easily detect a lie from someone weaker than him. Then what? Maverick frowned. I plan to strengthen the family's art. Adrian said. His father was looking at him like an idiot. Maybe he was not cured after all. I am serious, I was just too young back then to understand how big my ambition was. Adrian told the truth for once. So what happened? Maverick asked dismissively. I found a black magic spell, he said, ignoring his father's dangerous looks. Black magic usually used blood and souls as their materials and was highly frowned upon after some evil magicians from ancient times used it to harm many people. It does not use anything dangerous. It is not even forbidden as you can find it in the local library. Adrian quickly clarified. Aha, what do you mean? It is called Thought Tunnel. Oh, that one. Maverick frowned. The one where you dedicate 100% of your brain work on one task. He quickly asked as if realizing something. He knew about this spell. It was a first-rank spell that allowed a wizard to dedicate the entirety of his brain power to work on something, giving him a perfect focus and allowing a wizard to go beyond his normal capacities. Too bad it has a big drawback, so only idiots, fools, and desperate people used it. The drawback was that after activating it, as long as the answer to the question the wizard was working on was not found, the spell could never be terminated and the wizard would be lost in a coma forever, lost in the tunnels of their own thoughts without realizing it. Yes, the reason I had that black magic scroll was that I used it as a reference to modify the thought tunnel in order to only use 90% of my brain for the process. The idea was that the remaining 10% would be able to disable the spell if anything went wrong. Adrian lied. He only thought of this excuse in the past few days and it was perfect. The thought tunnel spell was in fact a soul spell, and what he said was completely possible. What? So that's why? Maverick pondered. Then what happened after that? That phenomenon in the sky. Oh, I don't know, as I passed out right after, Adrian said. It might be that the scroll had a curse or something. The problem was that this incident made me lose most of my memories, so I completely forgot about the thought tunnel spell. He explained while totally bluffing. Oh, Maverick nodded. We did detect something like that on it, but couldn't figure out its origin, he added as he inspected his son's face for any signs of deception. The explanation was 100% logical. That forbidden scroll did contain a strange trace of embedded magic, but after they failed to identify it, they sealed it away. Oh, what? Adrian almost blurted it out loudly. He didn't know about that. He needed to have a second look at that scroll. It might have something to do with the shattering of his soul like that. This doesn't explain why you couldn't use magic after that though. Could it be a curse? Maverick, who seemed a little convinced, pondered. They did try to cast many curse detection spells on Adrian back then, but nothing worked. No, I don't think it was. Adrian said, taking out a folded napkin and placing it in front of his father. What do you have here? Maverick asked as he opened it and noticed the black residue within. It smelled like shit, so he made sure to hold it more carefully. When the thought tunnel spell got resolved and I regained my memories, the first thing I noticed was that I couldn't use magic, so after carefully examining my meridians, I discovered that they were not conducting magic at all. Aha, that's why I asked for the hotel room, where I tried a few things and in the end, using a cleansing solution that I found in an old medical book, I managed to force this black matter out from my body. After that, I regained my ability as a magician. Adrian said. I did some research but found nothing, Adrian simply said. He didn't need to add anything. Oh, Maverick said in a very cold voice. He was not an idiot. This was clearly a poison. Someone must have poisoned Adrian back then, right when he was taken to the hospital. He needed to look into this. So you have now regained all your powers? He asked as he slowly folded the napkin and slowly moved to put it in his pocket before pausing and putting it on the table again. He better put it in a plastic bag first. No, my circuits and meridians were damaged, and I will need a couple of months and a lot of resources to fix them, Adrian explained. In the last couple of days, I only managed to get them barely working. I see, Maverick sighed. This made a lot of sense. At least you will no longer be banished from the family after today's assessment. He added with a smile as if a great weight had been lifted off his chest. Yes. Well, considering all this, we might be able to get you an 8th rank position or maybe a 7th, kick your brother if we made some deals. I am sure that with your gifts and brains, it will be only time before you do something great and raise up, so don't worry. He paused, remembering something. Wait, did you say the thought tunnel got resolved? All by itself? Yup, I did find a way to enhance the family art. Adrian said with an arrogant smile that his father had long forgotten. He swiftly took a sealed folder and set it on the table before his stunned father could fully comprehend what he said. "This is?" Maverick asked, his hand shaking, fully knowing what was in the folder. "It is exactly what you think it is, and the price for it will not only be returning me to the family, but also giving me a 0th family rank with everything that was taken away." Adrian directly stated his intentions as his father opened the envelope and took a look at the new magical circuit that was designed to change the entire world.